There is a $4 material sitting in the insulation aisle of your local hardware store right now that can block up to 97% of the radiant heat currently pouring into your home. It does not just slow the heat down, it reflects it back toward the sky before it ever touches your ceiling. NASA developed this technology to protect astronauts from the 250-degree temperatures of direct space, yet your local insulation contractor has likely never mentioned its name. The residential insulation industry generates over $60 billion a year in the United States alone, and their entire business model depends on you believing that thick, expensive blankets of fiberglass are the only way to stay cool. A $4 roll of perforated mesh that eliminates the need for massive HVAC systems cannot be allowed to go mainstream. So they buried it behind complex R-value ratings and building codes written by the very companies that sell you glass wool. They did not hide it because it fails. They hid it because it works too well. This is the story of the thermodynamic breakthrough that the cooling industry prays you never discover. Welcome to Extinct Skills. If these forgotten methods for self-sufficiency matter to you, subscribe and hit the bell. This is where we crack open the vaults that billion-dollar industries welded shut decades ago. To understand why your attic feels like a furnace, we have to go back to 1958, when the newly formed National Aeronautics and Space Administration faced an existential crisis. In the vacuum of space, there is no air to carry heat away through convection, and there is no solid medium for conduction. There is only radiation. NASA engineers realized that traditional bulk insulation, the kind sitting in your attic right now, is effectively useless against radiant energy. They needed something that could reflect electromagnetic waves at the speed of light. They developed a thin, aluminized polyester film, often called space blankets, which could reflect 97% of infrared radiation while weighing almost nothing. By the mid-1970s, during the height of the energy crisis, NASA began releasing this technical data to the public. Technical Report B75-200148 documented that this reflective mesh could reduce the heat gain in residential attics by up to 40% in southern climates. It was a miracle for the American homeowner, but it was a death sentence for the emerging insulation monopolies. While federal facilities began quietly lining their structures with radiant barriers, the residential market was funneled in a completely different direction. The insulation industry responded with the most successful psychological operation in construction history, the R value. They lobbied the Federal Trade Commission to make resistance value the only legal metric for insulation performance. But here is the secret they never tell you. R value only measures conductive heat moving through solids. It does absolutely nothing to measure radiant heat, which accounts for 90% of the heat gain in your attic during the summer. By forcing the entire industry to speak only in R values, they made the most effective cooling technology on the planet, the radiant barrier, literally invisible to the law. If a product has no mass, it has a technical R value of nearly zero, even if it stops 90% of the heat. This allowed companies like Owens Corning and Johns Manville to fill your home with bulky, itchy glass fibers that act like a giant heat sponge. These fibers absorb the sun's energy all day long and then slowly leak it into your living space all night. Your air conditioner isn't fighting the outdoor air. It is fighting the 140-degree battery of hot fiberglass sitting directly above your head. This video is just the first vault I have opened. I have compiled every suppressed survival technique, every DIY energy-saving method, and every forgotten trade into one place, the complete Extinct Skills Vault. Inside, you will find step-by-step blueprints for off-grid water systems, military-grade thermal upgrades that cost cents on the dollar, and the full attic shield protocol that the HVAC industry wants deleted from the internet. Over 15 guides, zero fluff, straight to the point. The link is in the description, but stay right here, because the science behind this $4 mesh goes much deeper than the history books suggest. The physics of your attic are governed by the Stefan-Boltzmann Law, which states that the heat radiated from a surface increases to the fourth power of its temperature. When your roof shingles hit 160 degrees in the July sun, they are not just hot, they are a radiant cannon firing infrared energy directly into your home. Traditional fiberglass insulation is porous. It allows these radiant waves to pass through it like light through a window until they hit your drywall. The industry knows this. They have seen the data from the Florida Solar Energy Center, showing that a simple perforated mesh barrier can reduce ceiling heat flux by 40% more than adding an extra foot of fiberglass. But you cannot build a recurring revenue stream around a product that never settles, never rots, and never needs topping off. A $60 billion empire depends on one principle. The customer must believe that more is better. They want you to buy R19, then R30, then R49, stacking more and more sponges in your attic while the radiant fire continues to burn right through them. Every dollar of that empire depends on you never realizing that a thin sheet of mesh can do what a mountain of glass wool cannot. If you have made it this far, you already know more about thermodynamics than 99% of homeowners. Subscribe and share this with anyone who is still paying a $400 electric bill for a house that refuses to stay cool. Remember, every share preserves what the energy industry tried to erase. The suppression was not just about marketing, it was systematic. Throughout the 1990s, major insulation manufacturers began acquiring the smaller companies that produced radiant barriers, not to sell the product, but to mothball the patents. They funded independent studies that tested radiant barriers in dusty, improperly ventilated environments to purposefully skew the results. They trained home inspectors to look for proper insulation thickness, measured in inches of fiberglass, while ignoring the lack of radiant protection. They created a world where a homeowner feels safe because they see a thick pink blanket in their attic, even as their AC unit grinds itself into an early grave trying to keep up with the radiant load. It is a designed failure loop. The more heat your insulation absorbs, the more your AC runs. The more your AC runs, the sooner it fails. The sooner it fails, the more you pay the service industry. It is a $240 billion ecosystem of engineered inefficiency. Here is exactly how to take your home out of that system for less than the cost of a tank of gas. Go to a construction supply house or a bulk online retailer and look for perforated radiant barrier mesh. It must be perforated to allow moisture to escape, or you will trap rot in your rafters. A 1,000 square foot roll typically costs less than $150, which breaks down to mere cents per square foot. You only need a heavy-duty stapler and a utility knife. Do not lay it on top of your existing insulation. Dust will settle on it and kill its reflectivity within 2 years. Instead, you must staple the mesh to the underside of your roof rafters, leaving a small air gap between the mesh and the roof deck. This gap is the secret. It allows the mesh to reflect the radiant heat back into the space between the rafters and the roof, where it can be carried out by your ridge vents. The installation takes one afternoon and requires no professional training. A homeowner in Phoenix, Arizona, documented that after installing this 4 per yard mesh, his attic temperature dropped from 155 degrees to 105 degrees in a single day. His cooling bill fell by 32% the following month. He didn't buy a new AC, he just stopped the fire from entering the building. This knowledge is not a hack or a trick. It is the fundamental application of the laws of physics that humanity has understood since the first time someone held a reflective shield against the sun. The Romans used shaded porticos to create pressure differentials. The Persians used wind catchers to move air over thermal mass. We have been taught to trade our independence for a thermostat and a monthly bill. We have been conditioned to believe that comfort is something we must purchase every 30 days from a utility company. But the sun does not charge a licensing fee, and the laws of thermodynamics do not require a subscription. The $4 mesh is still on the shelf. The staple guns are still in the garage. The only thing missing was the knowledge of how to use them. If this vault opened your eyes today, subscribe and join us. Every subscriber is another person who has escaped the manufactured dependency of the modern world. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside is even heavier than the secrets of the attic. It is time to take back the skills they told you were extinct. Direct your attention to the link in the description to secure your access to the full repository before the doors are locked again. Your home is a battery. It's time you decided who controls the charge. Stay sharp, stay independent, and I will see you in the next vault.